and then we close yeah, we close the quotation here. So we hit save. And the next thing we need to do now, we have created class for our unordered list. And inside of our unordered list, we have the list item. All right. So we have the unordered list, we have the list item, and inside of our list item, we have the angle tag. So I know you already understand unordered list and list item. So inside of this list item, we also want to use Bootstrap classes on for our list item. So how do we do that? We go back to the documentation here, and for the list item, we have the class name nav item. So we select nav item on the documentation here, and then we click, we right click and click on copy, and then we go back to the link and make sure all of our list item, select them. So inside the opening tag of our list item, here we have the LR. So hold down control, equal LR, select LR, select LR, just like that. So you can select all of them simultaneously. So we get the other LR and then the next LR. So we have 6 list items here, 4 in the first order list and then 2 in the second order list. So we create space and paste our class. So now we have the class called nav item, and inside of the list item we have the angle tag. So we see if there is a class for angle, for our angle tag in Bootstrap. So we go back to our Bootstrap documentation and we look for the A tag. So this is the A tag, and in the A tag we have this link called nav link. All right. So let's grab the nav link, and then let's just grab the nav link. Let me see if we can use that. Okay. For link. Okay. So let's grab this nav link here and copy this. So if you notice, I skipped this nav link and I copy this one. And because this one that has the name has another class, Bootstrap class called active. So we'll use that later, but for now, let's click on that. Let's select that and then go into our anchor tag. So let's just leave all, as you can see, all the cursor blinking. So when we select all the list item, so just use your cursor, your arrow right, and just move to the right. All right. When you move to the right, create space, and then you paste what you copy from your documentation. So we paste this. So now we have what? Inside of our angle tag, we have a class called nav link, right? So now we'll go back to the documentation. On one of these links, especially the home, we have a link that says active. See here? So this active only means, it only tells the browser that this is currently the active link. That's why if you look here in the example they have here, the home link, it has some bit of difference from the other links here, like the link, the drop down and disable, stuff like that. So it is because of this active. So we go back to our editor, and then inside of the home, because we are saying that this is the home page. So click only inside the home where you have the class, create the space, and then write active active. So we tell the browser that this is the active page, the home page. So we save that and refresh and see what we have in our browser. So go back to our page and then refresh. Now we have this. We have our we now have our, how you call it, our list item and our link, everything start. So you see here, all the stylings that I apply to this link or to this link, or let's say the nav bar, comes from Bootstrap. We have nothing to do with them whatsoever. So we are only using these classes. These classes have already been defined by Bootstrap. We only call them, from the library. We only use them. We reuse them in our code. So that's what we are doing. So far we have this kind of structure. So the next thing we want to do here is when you go back here into the design, we have we have some link in the center, and then we have the sign in and the sign up on the right. And we also want to make sure we establish that kind of relationship or that kind of effect. So we go back to the code editor, and inside of the code editor, we make sure we create that kind of styling. So what the next thing we are going to do? If you look here inside of our design, the sign up, you know, link has a button around it, right? As you can see here, you got that kind of blue, button here, something like that. So let's go back to the code, and this is the sign up link in our code editor. So the only thing we want to do here is to make sure we apply that effect. So let's go back to Bootstrap documentation, and let's go to button. So look at this effect, it's a button. So let me zoom in so you can see, you already know what I'm talking about here. So this is a button. So we have to go back to the documentation and then look for, check on the components, check on the Bootstrap components, where we have buttons. Click on buttons, and then let's see some of the buttons we have here. So these are examples of the buttons. So if you look at the links here in the, uh, hello, hello,
Yeah,
hi,
hello.
oh, you're getting me?
Hello.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. All right, thank you. So if you look here inside of the list here, we have these let's say some buttons we have here. So the button we want to use is the kind of dark button here. Yeah, this one with the dark. So and the styling for this button is this here. So all we need to do here is grab the class of this button. So the class is what BTN dark. So the bootstrap class is BTN dark. So copy that class, right? And then we copy this and go into our editor inside of the sign up link. See here, this is the sign up link, and we already have a class called nav atom, right? So maybe what we want to do, no need for to copy the whole class. So all we need to do is to go back here and only copy what we have, BTN inside here, BTN dark. So let's copy only this, copy and go back to the editor, and then inside of the class. And the good thing about Bootstrap, or the good thing about, let's say, HTML, you can also declare more than one classes. So in this case, we already have a class called nav atom. So we create a space and create our next class called, we just paste, calling it what, BTN dark. All right. So we save this and refresh our browser and see what we have so far. All right, and very good. We have this button. Look weird, but we use it. But it's very big. So how do we reduce the button? To reduce the button, we go back to our editor and then we create uh another styling. Oh my god. Oh, sorry, no, no, no. I'm very busy. We say BTN dash, use the word SM. So the SM stands for, let's say, small or medium, small size. So remember in the last class we talked about LG. People busy. Yeah. Oh my God. Okay, guys. So let's get back to the class. My network was interrupted. So let me go back to the class quickly, and then yeah, inside of our class here, inside of our sign up list item, inside of the, oh, and nobody telling me so. See the black I paste the, I'm supposed to paste it in here. I'm supposed to paste it in a link. So let me grab it from here, cut it, and go into the anchor tag instead of the list item. So inside here of the anchor tag, we paste it in here. So now we have this. And in the last class, we talked about LG. We talk about SM, we talk about XS, and we talk about what else? We talk about MD, right? We say LG, why? It means what? Large desktop. So there's desktop that have the screen size of 1920, yeah. So 9,000, the width, the screen size of let's say 1,950 pixels. Very huge, very large desktop. And we got MD, which is the middle size. We got SM for tablet and XX for phones. So you can do your research and get to know them. So here we apply BT and SM. So with that effect, save it and refresh our browser and notice what happens. We have a smaller size of this sign up button, as you can see here, right? So that's it for now so far. And the next thing we need to do is to make sure we establish this kind of effect. where we have some link in the center and some on the right. Then we have the logo on the left. Just the same way we have it in our design. So we go back to our editor, and the next thing we want to do is we want to create a container. All right. Bootstrap has two containers, two classes that help you to contain your elements within div or within any session. So for example, we have the class container, just container, and then we have container fluid. So in this case, we are going to use container fluid. We're going to apply container fluid to our navigation bar. Remember, only the navigation bar we're applying container fluid to. So to do that, we identify what we have the navigation bar. Where does the navigation bar start? The navigation bar in the code start from right here where my cursor is right now, and it ends to where you see this blue line right here. So inside of our hero session, so the container is not taking over the entire hero session, only the navigation bar. So remember, the navigation bar is inside of the what? Is inside of the hero session. So right here, what we have, this is the beginning of the hero session, and then inside of the hero session, right under here, we create our div, and then we give the class container fluid, container dash fluid. So we use the Bootstrap class called container fluid, and this is the closing tag of our container fluid. So the only thing we need to do is to copy this closing tag, cut it, not copy but cut. Select and cut it, and bring it to the end of where they bring it where the navigation bar ends. So this is where the navigation bar ends. We enter, and then we paste our closing tag for the container fluid. We save this, and let's refresh in our browser and see if we have that effect. Oh no, we don't have that effect. Okay, so let's in this case, let's try and use container and see. So we have container, save it, and then we should have the effect taking place. Um, okay, we have the effect button. Right, we have the navigation bar. Sorry guys, oh my god, not inside the navigation bar, inside of the sorry, let me okay, so inside it's supposed to be inside of the navigation bar. So we'll go back here. So inside the navigation bar, so make sure you exclude the navigation bar. So right here in front of the navigation bar, you hit enter, and then you paste the link. So we should now have, and also the closing tag should be inside of our navigation bar. So we cut this and then paste, and then uh, paste this, save, and then let's see what we have. Okay, so now we have what? We have the button, we have the logo on the right, we have some link in the center, and then we have our what? We have our sign in and sign up button on the right, as you can see. So the next thing we want to do, let's go back to the code, and instead of container fluid, let's use container, right? In this case, we use container, and then let's save, and let's see what we have. Okay, so at least we have it, a little parting away from the edge of our let's say our navigation bar. Huh? So the next thing we want to do is to let's forget about the hover links and what have you. Let's go to the hero session. We'll come back and do the styling for the hover effect and stuff like that. So let's go to the hero session. Remember in the design as we have it here, we have in the hero session we have uh okay, click this, bring this to focus. So in the hero session we have what? We have the text, we have text and what buttons on the left, and then we have image on the right. So how do we do that? To do that, we already explained how to do that. We use what you call nested div, all right? And this is the foundation of Bootstrap positioning system, all right? So knowing how to position divs and stuff like that. So back in those days when we never had Bootstrap to help us to, make our layout, flexible and stuff like that, we used to struggle because you will construct the div and then you will go into your CSS and then you will style all the div. Sometimes it can be really, really, really confusing. All right. So in our design here, we're going to establish nested divs. So if you notice here, inside of our hero session, so let's collapse the navigation bar for now and head over to the hero session. So inside of the hero session, guys, we have one a div here. We have a class here. We have a div with the class with an empty class. So this div is a containing div. That means it contains two other divs. All right. So if you look here, the div begins here and it ends right here. So inside of this div, this containing div, we have the first div. All right, that contains HTTP element, H1, and a button. So if you look here in the design, this is the div we are talking about. The div that contains the HTTP element, the H1, and the two buttons right here. So it is the div that is on the left here in the design. So in our code here, it is the first div, and the second div contains our image. You see the image? This is the image right here. So in the design, this is the image we are talking about, and I don't think we have the image now in our library. So let's go ahead. Let's go right ahead and export this image. So select this image, bring it to focus, and export the image here as, let's export it as SVG. Don't forget, scalable vector graphics. All right. So we go to export, we go to selected, and then we choose what? Instead of PNG, we choose what? SVG. My God. Am I recording? Oh, yes, I'm recording. Okay, so we have SVG, and then we have what you call uh we use link instead of embed, and we have uh yeah, we can choose to say we use the minified version, which is the compressed version of the image, and yep, and so far so good. We export this. So let's export it to picture, and we'll later move it from picture, and then we carry to okay, what's the name of the so that go to picture, go to my picture right here, my picture folder, and this is the I mean this is the image. Remember it's in SVG. The SVG can only be open in a browser. That way, reason why you see in the like the Google Chrome let's say browser. So copy this, or let's cut it completely and move it to let's move it to desktop here where we have Inventor. Inside Inventor, into our folder, into our image folder here, we paste the image. So this is the name of the image that we name it as in event. So let's say that add a T behind here. So it will be event planner. All right, so now we have the name of we now have the image here in SVG. Go back to the code. And what do we do? In our image here in the second div, we say what? The directory is what? IMAGES coming from the root directory, and then forward slash, that means enter the image folder. Inside of this image folder, I want the picture called EVNT, event dash, what was that? Event planning. Let me see before I forget. So the name is event, what is it? Event, okay, event planner.svg. So we say event dash planner. We already have the dash. Planner PLANER dot SVG. And what would be the alternate, just in case the browser doesn't load this page, or let's say just in case the browser doesn't render this image for some technical reason, so this text will appear. So the name is what? Uh, what's that? So here we can say we can name it relevant to what is in the image, and what is in the image is already planning or event. So we can just the alternate text would be woman planning, something like this. Woman planning. Okay, no. Let's say image, IMAGE, image of a woman planning her event, something like this. All right. So we save that and we head over to, yeah, so far so good. So as I was saying, we have the containing div, which is this div, and then we have two divs inside of this containing div. This is what we call nested div. So I want you to pay attention because the next challenge is coming from here. All right. So inside of our nested div, guys, the containing div, we give it a class called row, right? So this is a Bootstrap class. So to use Bootstrap 12 column grade, according to Bootstrap, the standard is set to use that 12 column grade. We have to use we have to put all the columns into a row. And you know this 12 column grade that we initiated here, right? Very good. So use the 12 column grade. We have to use a row, Bootstrap class called row. Inside of this row, we have these two divs. Okay, so now we are saying that there are 12 columns, all right? There are 12 Bootstrap columns according to that grading template, all right? That grading system, 12. Now we have two divs. How do we, uh, let's say, how do we align these two divs side by side so that one div take up half the space of the 12th grade? How do we do that? The easy way to do that is to divide the number of div inside the row by the total number of bootstrap uh, columns we have. And how many divs we have here? We got two. So it is 2 divide 12, which is 6. So it means inside each of these div, we will use the bootstrap class called col dash 6. Let me say 5, 6. Very good. So it means each of these div will take up half the space of the 12 div. So when we save this and let's refresh our browser, now we should have it like this. Even though it's big, but we'll still style it and make it much better. But as you can see here, we have the text on the right and the image on the left. So if we inspect, let's go to Google Chrome Developer Tool, just right click and go to inspect here. If we inspect the elements here, we have let me reduce let me scale it down so we can see what we're doing here better. All right, so inside of the div, this is the div. Let me bring it closer. So this is the div that contains uh the, this is the div that contains these two elements. So you see here, the div has a class called row. It is a flex box. So the browser will render it as a flex box because what we're using bootstrap element, bootstrap class called div, right? So inside of this class, we have two divs, and these are the two divs, colon dash 6. So this column takes up the first column takes up 6 columns. That is half of the 12 columns, right? And the second take up it takes up 6. But then when you look there, you see the green line. See that? See the green line as I hook up. There's a green line here on the left here, on the right here. And the green line represent what? Let's go here to the structure. So if you have used the developer tool before, you will know exactly what I'm talking about. So when you come here to the structure here, the green line here represent padding. So it means that between these two divs, they have a padding of 12. You see the 12 pixel right here? I don't know if you can see that, but I'm seeing it like crazy. And left to right has a padding of 12. So the Google Chrome developer tool will help you, to inspect the elements on the page and how they are laid out. So now we have observed that. Let's close Google Chrome developer tool. So we know that we have the two columns here side by side and blah blah blah. So that's good to go, right? All right, so yep. So let's tackle the first part of the div. You have any questions so far? If you have any question, please unmute yourself so we can tackle all the questions before we proceed. If no question, then I'll proceed. So then we get into the second class. I mean, this first div. Remember, we are still inside the first continued div here, which is the row, which is the overall, continued div. Inside of here, we have what? We have the H3 element, and we have what? An H1 element. Remember in the previous class, we said what? On every page, there should be one and only one H1 element. So if you are styling your website, never ever use two H1 elements on a single page. It is not a good practice. It is not professional. I also explained the reason why you don't do that, right? The reason we don't do that is because it confuses Google search engine. And all these factors play in what? Making your site to rank on Google. You see, for example, in the image tag here, some of us will ignore the alternate attribute, right? So for the alternate attribute, I put image of a woman planning her event. The reason I did that is because I don't want Google when we share, for example, if Google render this page, and then Google, find this page and I mean prominent or find it important if, for example, we have a text or description of the image here. So the alternate attribute only describe what kind of image is this. So always make sure when you use an image. I don't know if you have used content management system like WordPress. So make sure you always add a text there, at least to describe the kind of image you have on the website. So inside of our div here, what do we do? We have to connect here to Bootstrap so that we can start the buttons. See the buttons here? The two download buttons here. We got to start them. All right. So before we start them, remember we have to do some, uh, some good stuff here before we start, right? So how do we do that? We go back. Now we introduce our custom CSS. So both we have our Bootstrap CSS, we are connected to Bootstrap CDN, and then we have to establish our own custom CSS. So we'll be having two CSS files rendering. One is on our own server, and one is at Bootstrap. So Bootstrap will be, so using that kind of let's say is that methodology or what? We'll be using that kind of method to connect to Bootstrap. So in this case, we create a custom CSS. So how do we create a custom CSS? We go into the head tag. You already know how to create custom CSS. There are three type of links in CSS, right? We got inline CSS. Inline CSS, I don't think I really need to explain that. But if you know it, please, if you know it and you forgot, please go do rehearsal because your next challenge, the challenge after the challenge that coming, we have to do with, let's say, navigation or linking CSS files in in to HTML. So remember, we have three ways we can link CSS files. We got internal link, we got inline CSS, we got inline CSS, we got internal CSS, and we got external CSS. Inline CSS is where you style, you know, uh, a particular element, from the opening tag. For example, I can come into the opening tag of my H1 element, and let me see here. So, for example, where is it? Inside the H3 element, I can come in here and say and use what you call style style. Inside of my style, I can say background color. No, color. So the color of my H3 will be color, we say color column will be, let's say, red. Use the color red and use my command and save this. When I refresh my browser, notice what happens. You already know that. All right, so I don't need to explain. Easy, it gave my HT element the color of red. This kind of styling is called what? Inline CSS. And this styling is not good, you know. They have specific, they got more specific, and they got less specific, and they got specific, they got more specific, and they got less specific. So in this case, at the level of the inline CSS, we are talking about more specific. All right. So you see here at we start this by element, the HTTP element, using inline CSS, which is not a good thing to do. So another CSS is what we call what? Internal CSS. So in the internal CSS, we are taking the styling for inside of the opening tag of the variable element that would be. Oh, wait a minute. So I gotta grab this whole thing and remove it from here. All right. So at this level, we are removing, that stuff, removing the styling inside of the opening tag of the element. We take it where? Inside of the head. So we have the head tag here. So I can come into the head tag here. Uh, this is the head tag. Remember, we have the head. So inside the head tag, I can say star style, use my star. Inside of my star, I can say h3. I grab my h3 element and I say inside of my h3 element, I give the color of what? Of red. So that's another way to do the styling. So this kind of styling is called. So if I save it and I go to my browser and I run it, I still have red. Let me change the color so you see exactly what I'm talking about. You already know that. I know you know it, but I just want to give you some hint on how your challenge will be. So we have blue inside of our head, and if we refresh this page, we should have what? Blue. So this kind of styling is what internal. So it is what? Inside of the HTML document. All right. So this styling has its own backdrop or drawback or whatever it is. And the drawback to this kind of styling is it makes, it creates unnecessary, I mean, necessary, yes, but it creates too much lines. You know how many styling you have to create for this particular page? If you were to create all the stylings right inside of the head tag, I mean, you have so many lines of code, which is not good practice. So now comes the last, how you call it, the last kind of CSS, which is the external. That is to create a CSS document inside another folder and just link to it. So based on that backdrop, we will clear out our styling inside the head tag and head over to our external CSS. So the external CSS is the best way and the more accurate way. All right. So in our external CSS, all we need to do, we already have our CSS folder. So we just right click on the CSS folder here, as you can see, and then we go to new file, click on new file, and our new file will be our styles styles.css. You already know that styles.css. So it's the main CSS file. So we click enter. Now we have created a folder. We have created a file inside our CSS folder called what? Styles.css. So this styles.css folder will be our folder, it will be our file that we connect as a custom CSS file here in our HTML document. So we go back here into the head tag, and the only thing we need to do now is to link to that CSS file. So how do we link? We just say let's come in first and say what custom custom CSS. So we say custom CSS, and inside here we say link. We use the word link. We use the element called link, and then inside of the link we have our two attributes. The first attribute has to do with the relationship between relationship of the link, which is the star sheet. We are linking a star sheet, and the href has to do with the directory. Where can we find this style sheet? So the style sheet is in our CSS folder. Yep. And we don't need to put a first forward slash. The first forward slash represents the root. That means we're coming from the root directory. So our root directory is what? www.inventor.co. So we don't need to specify it here. So we remove that forward slash as it is. And then inside of the CSS folder, we have a file called styles. So we just say styles. That's it. Styles the CSS. So looking at this, we have connected our custom CSS. And to make sure we have connected our custom CSS, we can just grab our, let's say body, use the body element here inside of the star sheet and give it a background color, give it a background color of red. I mean, as an example now, we're not using that kind of very, very scary color. So if we refresh, we have the background color red. So it means that we have successfully connected to our external CSS. I know you already know that, so no need to waste the time, but I will have to waste the time because it's important for those who don't know it. All right. The next thing we need to do, we have connected our custom CSS, custom external CSS, right? Any questions so far, guys? Any questions so far? Do we have any question? Guys, are you following or am I just talking? Hello? Yeah, hello? Oh, wait a minute, let me talking here. Hey, a minute, terrible. Hello? Somebody give me feedback now. So let me know for me to know that you're following, guys. Hello? No feedback? No feedback for me? No feedback. Oh, these guys are so terrible. No feedback here, no feedback. Hello? Hello. Hello. Cause of me following. Hello. Alright guys, so no problem. Once I have it on recording, I will continue. Alright, so as I was saying, so now we have our external CSS, and so let's go ahead and yeah, start styling. Oh my god. Hello. How many will leave me here and go? Right. So inside, the next thing we're about to do here is to create what you call a global styling. So global styling is a styling that applies to all of our elements, and our elements there they are we consider them as global elements, right? Because we can access them without using classes or without using IDs. So in this case, we say to comment. Remember, control forward slash to comment, and we will say here we call it global global styling, global styling. Inside of our global styling, we say for our HTML, inside of the global styling, guys, we can you imagine? Can you imagine? Can you imagine? Inside of our global styling, the first thing we want to do here is okay. For now, let's leave our global styling. We'll come back there later. But let's go back to our HTML here. We'll go back here to our links, and yep. So we start styling our website. So we refresh, remove the very huge color here. I will have to save. Okay, let me save this. Make sure I save this so that that can take effect. All right, so I'll refresh this and remove that kind of very red background color. And now let's grab our elements in here. So how do we grab our elements? So the next thing we want to do here in this case is to make sure we align, as you can see. Okay, let me increase. We have, yeah, 100. So it's to align our hero session along with our navigation bar. Uh, so we have the navigation bar here. The navigation bar has this kind of stuff away from the stuff, away from the the links here, they are away from the navigation bar. So we have to make sure we establish that kind of effect. So to establish that kind of effect, the next thing we need to do is to go back to our hero session here. Scroll down. After navigation bar, we have the hero session. And inside of the hero session, we have inside of the hero session here, we have the okay. Inside of the hero session here, we have okay, right inside the hero session, enter div and enter and create your div, and the name of this div is container container. And all we need to do here is to copy. We can just copy this containing div here, copy it, or no, not copy, but cut it completely and paste it right inside of our container, our container div here. Right, and we have this, we have this. So we save this. Now when we refresh the browser, we should have it aligned here. So you create that space from the edge of the browser to the text here. So it should also create a space there. All right, so we'll have it. And now the next thing we need to do is to start styling this session, the hero session. So we go back to the code, and then we go up here to where we have the ID here. So for the Hero session, if you notice all of our sessions, we created ID attributes, right? So we create, uh, select uh, this ID, copy it, and go to our star sheet. And for now, let's ignore the global styling. Like I said, and start styling our hero session. So we say hero, and this styling will go for, okay, yeah. So we start styling our hero session. So we say hero session. Inside of the hero session, we got the inside of the hero session we start styling. So to call an ID selector, what do we need to do? We use the pound sign. Very good. So there's a difference in targeting an ID class, no, an ID selector and a class selector. So to target, for example, I'm trying to target this ID, uh, the attribute ID for the hero session. I'm trying to target this session in our CSS styling. And the only way I can target that is to use the pound sign, which says that I am initiating the styling here will be applied to an ID selector. So I use the pound sign, and then the name of the ID. The name of the ID is hero. So I paste that, and create my curly braces. Inside of my curly braces is where I'm going to the property for that apply a property for that session. So here we are going to create a kind of system here for all of our sessions. We create a padding of 3% top and bottom, and 7% and 7% left and right, right? So this will be the padding for our hero session. And then just like that. So after we put down the value and then we close that property by using a command. So every property will be enclosed by a command. I hope you understand that. So we go back here right after the hero session. We have the background color, BACK. So the background color for our hero session. Yeah, yeah, guys. Yes,
The same command, I think it should be semicolon, right?
I'm saying command. Oh, sorry. I'm so sorry. It should be semicolon. That's right. So we use semicolon. So sorry. I meant semicolon. So now the
Mhm.
background color for that hero session will be what? The color of this background color. So let me go back here and remove the layout here, and then bring this to focus. So this background color, right? It kind of pink. So this is the color right here. So we can select the color from here, go inside here and grab the color code. This is the color code. Copy this color code, carry it to our editor, and paste the color code right there, and use a semicolon. That's right. So right after that, what the next thing we need to do? So far, so good. Yeah. So let's save this for now and refresh our browser and see what we have here. So when we refresh the browser, we have the background color. As you can see, we have the top and bottom padding there of 3%. And then we have another padding. So for this case, we have already we have already used Bootstrap in the editor here. We have already used, let's go back to HTML. We have already used a container that is already defined by Bootstrap called what? Container. It has its own styling. So in this case, for our left to right padding, the only thing we want to do is to maybe don't use any padding at all, and it just says 0%, because we already have the container. I mean, using Bootstrap container. So let's go ahead and save this, refresh. Now we have it. We have it, but we still have to use the padding, because in the design we have the navigation bar not running across the browser. As you can see here in the design, the navigation bar starts from right here and not here. So because of that, we apply the 7%, or maybe 5. Let's reduce it to 5% instead. 5% left to right. So when we refresh this. Now you notice that in the browser we have here we have the padding there from left to right applying to our navigation bar. All right, so the next thing we need to do is to enter inside of our hero session and start styling for here. See here, we have this kind of color. We have our HTTP element here, then we have our H1, and we have our button. So how do we do that? So we go back in here, we go back here. How do we target our HTTP element inside of this first div right here? How do we target it? There are two ways we can target this. We can target this by, using the parent and child relationship. That is where, since the containing div for the div that contains this element is the div of the class colon 6, we can create a
The class
custom.
name, this.
Yeah, yeah. You want to try? You want to help?
Yeah, like you will have to call the parent name,
Yeah,
like the class colon sys.
yeah.
Then at the same time you created, you call it the child name of that parent that you just.
Okay. So I think we should follow your procedure, right? So now let's go. Can you direct us? So what do we do? We call the what? The parent name.
So we call the parent name class colon sys, the
Okay.
dot colon sys now class.
All right. So in this case, we don't want to have anything to do with Bootstrap column. So that column says is a class that is what rendered by Bootstrap. We don't want to use it in our custom CSS. All right. So let's create
Okay.
our own class. Let's create our own class. And remember, the difference between class selector and ID selector is an ID selector can only be you. It can only be huh?
Be called by pound. The ID letter can be called by pound, right?
Yes, it can be called by a pound. But in your HTML
The
document,
class letter
yeah,
can be called by.
yes, it can be called by a pound. But I mean, in let's say in declaring an ID in your HTML document, always make sure when you declare, for example, the hero here, that we have this hero right here, the selector with the ID hero. In this class, we have the ID here. So we cannot use this ID again anywhere else in this document. So it is unique. All right. So always get in the habit of creating that kind of uniqueness. When you declare an ID, for example, we have hero, do not declare anywhere else in your HTML document. But for class, you can have multiple classes. So for example, in this case, we create our own custom class. So in the custom class here, we put down control, and then we also create, we have two divs inside, right? So we make sure we have these two classes here. So we can say, we can give it a class one. The name of the class will be what? The name of the class will be, blah, 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 right? So we can create a class name. So what will be the name of the class? Hello, Prince? Prince, are you following? Yeah, you talk.
Back now.
Huh? Prince, you
Yes.
following?
Yes.
You following?
Yeah. I went offline and
Oh,
then
okay. The
back
network.
now.
Oh, okay. So as we're saying, we can construct our own custom class and then use it as the parent class and then call the child class. But if you notice this, we have already established that uniqueness all the way from our design, from this layout, from Adobe. Remember we said what? Only there can be one and only one H1 element on our page. And if you look here, we have the huge text that I say the word bigger event creator. This will be our H1 element. And then we said for every for every um for every session, we introduce every session with an H2 element. So if you notice here, the above us here is an H2 element. And then up here, above where we have the book and create events is an HTTP element. So one way we can create, let's say a styling for this element is what we call the global styling, right? So we can first target the global styling, and if we need any specific styling, then we can go to, like for example, the parent-child relationship, like we are talking about now. So in this case, we go back up here into our CSS styling, where we have the global styling. So inside of the global styling, we want to say um, for we come here, we say first of all, we say for H1. Now for H1 element, we want to apply this styling. We go here and we say inside of this styling, the first thing we say we want a font family. We say font family. The font family will be what? Remember the font family. Let's go back to Google Font, and we already have it here. Copy this link. But then if you scroll down here, we have these are the families that we want to use. You see here? So we can copy this. So if we come here to our design, this H1 here is what? What's the font family? The font family is what? Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Okay, it's what? Railway. You can see it? Railway. So the only thing we need to do, go back to Google Chrome and choose Railway. Only Railway where to copy this link here, copy it, move it to the code, and there we go. Paste. Oh no, I already have font family. Let me remove the first font family. All right, then we paste it. So we have the font family called Railway, and Railway is a family, is a member of the Sans Sheriff family, right? Okay, so that's how we have it like that. So it means all H1 element on our page will carry this family, right? And the next thing we need to do is what? The color of our H1 element. So we say the color of our H1 element would be in some case, please, I want to make this very clear. In some case or in some cases, um, the styling we are constructing here might be different. Some will, prefer using this styling at, the level of the element. I mean that, for example, more specifically, creating a class on that element and then calling it. So I don't see any difference. Mean this is the H1 element, right? I create a class here for the H1 element, I call it whatever, and I can style it. Except where I have more than one H1 element, and and I want to make a certain H1 element, I want to give a certain styling to a particular H1 element. Maybe in that case, I can use this. But since we have only one H1 element on our web page, as we have already defined that from our layout, then we can follow this styling, we can follow that method. We go back here, and this will be the color. What's the color here? When we come here into the design, the color is this kind of color here, this blue kind of color. So we just click on it and copy the color code. Copy color code. Let me see if I stay recording. Okay. Copy color code, go back to the editor and just paste the color code right in there and then use a semicolon. What the next thing we want to do? Uh, for now, as I see it, let's leave it as it is. So let's save and refresh the browser, and there we go. So what happens? We have the blue apply, and we have this event creator and stuff like that. But then if you look at this, we have a bold, tab face, right? See the bold tab face here. So we just go back to the editor and use the next property called font width. Uh, font width. So the font width will be bold. Is that bold or bolder? Let's use bold. Very good. So we save it. And when you look in the design, look at how the text goes. We have what? The word biggest event, and right after event, we have a line break, right? The text break on the next line and say creator at your service. So how do we establish that effect? We go back to the HTML. Inside of the HTML, we what we have the world's biggest event. Right after that, we use the line break. You already know that B arrow. So the line break element is a single tag anyway. So we save that, and then go back into the code, if you look here in the design, we have a little space between the first line and the second line of our H1 element. And that little space is called our line height. So we go back to our code here and then create our line height, L-I-N-E, line height of 1.8. All right. And 1.8 will not have anything called pixel. There is nothing called pixel here because we are scaling. All right. So when you are scaling, you don't use pixel, you don't use any unit. So I hope you established that understanding. So we go here, we save, refresh, and see what we have in the browser. Hey, the bookface is not easy. All right, we have it on 3 lines. The reason is because we have this huge, as you can see here, this huge image right here that is disturbing the styling here. So how do we affect this huge image? Let's go back and create styling for that huge image. The only thing we do is, um, what do, guys? We can choose in this case to create the parent and the child relationship, right? I think that would be okay if we want to. Yep. But in this case, let's create a class quickly. We can create a class. Hello guys, are you with me? I will stay here. Akuti. Oh my god, a minute, keep dropping. Yeah, as I was saying, so we enter here inside the class here, and the next thing we want to do, grab the image, or we give this class, let's just construct the class quickly for for this parent div. We say the name of the class will be how do we call it? We call it hero dash div. Very good. So we call this the hero dash div. Uh, for some reason we call it hero dash div. Copy this and move it to our style sheet. And now we use the parent and the child relationship. So we use dot, bring the class, and then inside of this containing div, as we have here, as you can see here, inside of this div, we have an element. We have an element that is a child of this div, which is the image tag here. So the only thing we go back to go back to the style sheet and then use the greater than. See the greater than sign? That greater than sign means I want to enter. It's almost like a directory structure for styling, you know, almost like a directory for styling um, in CSS. So that greater than sign means I inside of this class there is an element called img, which is the tag there. So I want to start this tag and I want to give it a width of 100%. That is, it should take up 100% of its containing div. So I just save this. Let me see how it will work. How does it work? It will take up 100% of the containing div. Now we have the image taking up 100% of its containing div. If we like, if we still like, we can reduce the size of the image here because it's too big. We can say instead of 100%, we would like you to take up 80% of your containing div. And yes, and there we go. So it takes up what 80% of the containing div. And the next thing we want to do is to float this image to the right, right? So float, move it to the right, we'll move it to right. So float the image to the right, and if we float the image to the right, let's see what we have there. Okay, so now the image is at the right, but then we still have this, stuff like this. So let's reduce the size of our H1 element into the code. So let's come back here, and the size of our H1 element, which is the font size. Font size will be what? The font size of our H1 element will be Can we start at 20 pixels? Yeah, let's start at 20 pixels. Then we can increase from there, and then let's see what it takes. Now we have this very small stuff, and then we go double that size. Let's go twice that size, which will be 40 pesos. Make it 40 pesos, and save this and refresh our browser. What's this? Oh my God, what a Lorenzo. Oh, 40 is too huge. Maybe 30 will do just fine. Now we have 30 pixels, and there we go. Uh, okay, and then we save this, and now we have this. All right, and what else we need to do? We need to also start our H3 because this element is an H3 element. Go back to our global styling. And for our global styling, we have H3 element, and then inside of the H3 element, will conduct, we will conduct, we will conduct, let's go ahead, we say the font family. The font family for our H3 element will be the same family as the stuff there. Copy. Oh, damn it. We copy this, will be the same family as this, as the H1 element. So we paste that. And our code will be the test code, the color. The color is this kind of purple, and this is the purple. So they click on the purple and make sure we grab it quickly, and then copy the color code in here. Guys, I hope you're getting me. And then we copy this, and then we go there, we say color, and then we paste the color here. And I mean, the font size of this will be, we give you a font size of, let's trap 20 pixels. And now we refresh, we notice here we have this 20, the, the link there. And then instead of 20, still too big, 15 pixels will do just fine. Okay, then we have that color there. And the next thing we need to do quickly is to get our button. Don't need to waste time. And we have our button here. What's the button? So now we have these two buttons. So the only thing we need to do is to go here. We have inside of our button class, inside of the button, the opening tag, make sure we select here and here, these two areas, create a class inside of our button. And the name of the class will be btn space btn uh, dark, right? We have btn dark, that is a Bootstrap class. So when we refresh this, we should have Bootstrap buttons right there. So we have these two buttons, Bootstrap buttons, going to fine and going to nice as it is. And the next thing we want to do is, if you see here in the styling, we don't have we don't have um we don't have the two button style like this. So one has an outline color. So we go back and not color but an outline effect. So we go here, we say btn. The next one will be btn dash outline, btn dash outline dark. So when you do that, it makes the second button, it gives the outline to the second button as we have here. All right, guys. So any questions so far? We don't have any question. So if we don't have any question, we will save the class for today. And like, you know, I think we
However,
have, yeah,
the event planner image, I'm finding it in the resource folder.
event planner image. Yeah, it is not in the resource folder
Mhm.
because we still have it in Adobe. So you have to go in Adobe
So
and export it.
that's one
Oh,
thing.
oh yeah, yeah, you got to do that. But you can get it.
I get it.
You can get Adobe. You can get Adobe SD. You can open the file yet.
I want to install it, but I want to do on my personal machine. I want to do on the office machine. I can take it anytime.
Okay. All right. So I will, at the end of this class, I will send an image to you. Yeah. So as I see it, because we got three more classes. So to end the class tonight, I mean, we'll have another session of this class. Yeah, we just have to do it so that people can, catch along before we go to JavaScript. Because we got other stuff to complete. So we'll just do it in the class today, and then by 8 o'clock, from 8 to 10 o'clock, I believe then we can have the next session of the class. getting me, Koji?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so we're in the class for
Very-
today and then we'll begin. All right, Koji.
Okay.
Okay.